If you're looking for a spaceship on wheels or a budget sports car, keep walking. The 2026 Nissan Leaf aggressively ignores every modern EV trend. And that might be the best thing Nissan could have done. It simply behaves like transportation. Nissan looked at everything the EV segment decided was mandatory, the giant screens, the frunk theater, the over-the-air personality updates, and built the car without most of it anyway. Just a surprisingly solid EV that seems embarrassed by the rest of the segment. 214 horsepower and 261 pounds of torque from the electric motor doesn't sound like a performance-oriented power-to-weight ratio. It's more like a sufficiency equation, but it does work in the Leaf's favor. Instant torque from zero, linear mid-range, and nothing to manage at highway speeds. It's not quick enough to become your personality, which is probably healthy. The EPA rates this at 288 miles of range. Owners are averaging 5.4 miles per kilowatt hour in mixed driving, which works out to closer to 310 miles of range. In a category where the number on the sticker is usually the optimistic one, Nissan appears to have lowballed the good news. Every EV press release describes power delivery as seamless, and the Leaf's power delivery is seamless the same way tap water is seamless. It comes out when you ask for it, and you don't think about it until it doesn't. There is a sport mode, which is appreciated, and it sharpens things up for the first 20% of the experience. The remaining 80% is governed by mass. Physics continues its long, undefeated run. Nissan's E-Step is more aggressive regenerative braking. Lift off the accelerator and that electric motor starts working against you more aggressively than a normal coast, recovering energy and approximating the kind of engine braking that used to require a downshift. What it doesn't do is stop the car and hold. That's what the old E-pedal did, and this doesn't do it. Torque steer announces itself with a little tug at the wheel at lower speeds when you're asking for more than about 3/4 of throttle. And that's because the front tires are trying to both steer and deliver the torque that you're asking for. And the half shafts are not always agreeing on the torque split. You find the limit once, you note it, and then you return to driving habits that are more appropriate for daily driving where you'll never find it again. Subscribers get notified when new episodes drop on this channel. Non-subscribers hope the algorithm will show it to them eventually, and if you want to control when you see our episodes on YouTube, well, that's what the subscribe button does. The steering ratio is appropriately slow. It's strong on center, no wandering on the highway, no need to be managed. It's still slow enough that you're never in doubt about what kind of car this is. The Leaf's brakes are engineered to prioritize regenerative braking before actual brakes when the calipers apply clamping force to the pads and onto the rotors. The initial 30% of brake pedal travel is soft and linear, and then the actual bite of the brake pads shows up. And it's not a bad thing. Once you understand the braking calibration, you get totally used to it. Before you understand it, however, that first emergency braking situation feels like a game where the floor is moving underneath you before physics arrives. ABS intervention shows up early, and we are on winter tires, combined with this cold, dusty road surface that's probably the correct decision. And for my friends, the drivers out there, the Leaf does not enjoy being hustled through corners. There's about a half-second delay between the time you lift off the throttle or the time you apply the brake pedal before there's any kind of adjustment that happens. Any attempt to adjust the Leaf's attitude mid-corner comes with a bit of a delay. Try to trail brake this into a corner and it responds like the HR department. Nothing dramatic, nothing fast, just a calm administrative refusal. And then if you insist on pushing more through the corner and are sloppy about it, understeer arrives and then the Leaf calmly waits for you to return to your approved workflow. On the other hand, the suspension is so stable that when you back off and drive it like a normal human being, this is exceptionally well composed. The Leaf has conventional dampers, not adaptive dampers, and it has ride tuning that filters secondary road noise and expansion joints without reintroducing that energy as movement inside the cabin. Body roll exists, but secondary movement over large road imperfections does not. There's a little more wind noise than I was expecting at highway speeds, and it's surprising for a car of this kind of aerodynamic efficiency, but of course we have these large outboard mirrors, and I suppose that's where it's coming from. But the platform, the chassis, does a great job of filtering out road noise. If you want to support the channel beyond just watching, well, the merch store is open, and your support there means more time for us to produce episodes like this and less time worrying about manufacturer blacklists. No pressure, just an option. The fundamental seating position is crossover high, which means the floor is a bit distant and the kind of thigh support that you want over longer distances isn't there. Also, there's no lumbar adjustment in this seat, which would be a nice thing to have over longer drives. On the other hand, I suppose the trade-off is excellent visibility, which is unique in this segment because a lot of cars in this segment will trade off visibility for more aerodynamic roof lines. Sightlines are clear in all directions, and the best part is you can see those front fenders, which makes this thing very easy to maneuver in parking lots. The steering wheel is oval in the way a hotel pillow is ergonomic. You can use it, and you will use it. You'll also spend the first month wondering what problem this solved. The right side of this screen is in a different postal code. If I want to reach it, it's shoulders off the seat back and dignity gone. This is less of an interface than a reminder that horizontal real estate is not the same as ergonomics. The instrument cluster and the infotainment screen are perfectly clear and legible in all kinds of lighting conditions. I use the infotainment system on Apple CarPlay, and I'm very happy that way. I do have to talk about this. Nissan's climate controls have an interesting calibration approach. If I'm asking for what is 72 degrees Fahrenheit or 22 degrees Celsius, it's going to deliver me 2 degrees shy of that. And there's a consistency with this across all Nissans that suggests it's a design philosophy rather than a production miss. The push-button shifter sits here on the dash instead of the console to open up this floor for some additional space. And this freed space is now occupied by a little storage bin and a couple of cup holders. This front row is very airy and spacious, especially with this light-colored fabric across the top of the dash and across the top of the doors. You and your front seat passengers have plenty of room here, no question about that. The second row, however, well, I can barely fit behind myself in this seating position, so taller adults definitely will not be happy in that second row. Smaller children, dogs, no problem at all. And of course, if you're buying a crossover, you want it to carry your stuff. Cargo capacity under that hatch is very generous as well. The only thing I would complain about at this trim level is that the hatch is manual, not powered. I'm shooting this obviously in the winter. It's late winter. It is still cold. But what I was surprised about, pleasantly surprised, is that the cabin heater heats up this interior very quickly, much quicker than I thought it would. That's what a week behind the wheel told me about the Nissan Leaf. Here's what a year's worth of posts on owner forums tells you about what this is. Let's start with the number everyone's actually here for. EPA rates this SV Plus at 288 miles of range. Real-world owner data is coming in around 5.5 miles per kilowatt hour in mixed driving. One controlled run on a Platinum Plus hit 310 miles on a single charge. The sticker is usually where the optimism lives. Here, it's the floor. Second, the one-pedal regression. Multiple owners who came from earlier Leafs, or is it Leaves, noticed immediately that the new car doesn't fully stop on regen alone. It slows and then creeps. Owners call it a step backward. Nissan calls it the new calibration. Nobody calls it e-pedal because it isn't. Third, the dual port setup. Level 2 port on the driver's side, the NACS on the passenger side for DC fast charging. In practice, they sound versatile right up until you're standing in a parking lot learning the difference between AC and DC with your own money. Nissan has thoughtfully kept that lesson interactive. Fourth, the 12-volt battery. Across every generation of Leaf, the DC to DC converter chronically undercharges the 12-volt auxiliary battery, holding it around 60 to 70% instead of the ideal 90% that it needs. A dying 12-volt battery on a Leaf doesn't fail cleanly. It performs flashing lights, random warnings, refusal to charge. The full electrical seance. Fifth, independent owners on multiple platforms report that ProPilot, the adaptive cruise and lane keeping combination, meaningfully reduces commute fatigue. They're specific, it's not the EV. It's the driver assistance system doing its job without fighting you, the driver. If you own one of these or have some quality seat time behind the wheel of one of these, let me know in the comments what I got right and what I got wrong, because real-world owner experiences are much more revealing than anything I can learn in a week-long press loan, and I always read those comments. Sure, the Leaf will actively discourage you from driving it hard, but when you back off and let it be what it is, it nails the fundamentals of ride isolation and structural rigidity. Close a door on the Leaf and it lands with more authority than anything else at this price point suggests it would. Then you look at the hard plastic lower dash and some of the other trim and you understand the allocation. Nissan spent the money on where the car's built, not where it's dressed. It's not trying to be an iPhone on wheels, and it's certainly not trying to be a sports car. The 2026 Leaf builds on 14 years of one car and delivers good ride isolation, range numbers that beat what Nissan put on the window sticker, which almost never happens in this direction, a structure that feels more expensive than its price, and no drama. Drama costs extra, and Nissan correctly chose not to charge you for it. At this price point, this Leaf SV Plus is a rare occasion where a nameplate found its lane and stayed in it. Would I recommend it? To the right person, absolutely, no question. The wrong person would be bored by it inside of a week, but that's not the car's fault. That's the 2026 Nissan Leaf SV Plus. Subscribe if you enjoyed this, don't if you didn't. Comments are open if you disagree, and if you want to help support more of these, well, the merch store is open. See you on the next one.